story begins with Mahiru, a simple boy who doesn't like problems or complicated things. For this same reason, one day while returning home, he sees an abandoned kitten and decides to take it home, adopting it and naming it Kuro. The next day in class, Mahiru's classmates are discussing preparations for an upcoming school event, but since they're all lazy and none of them want to do anything, they patiently wait for our boy to arrive because they know he would accept to do it all. When Mahiru enters the classroom, he brings along a test cookie for his classmates to taste, so that they would accept him taking charge of the food. After tasting the simple but delicious cookies, they agree without problem. After class, Mahiru gathers with his close friends and they all walk home. And during the conversation, they ask him why he accepts doing all the work without complaint. Mahiru explains that since he is a simple person, he prefers to take responsibility instead of fighting over it, as he dislikes conflict of any kind. But when the group has to separate because Mahiru needs to buy some groceries, his classmate and best friend Sakuya Watanuki warns him to be careful, since the shop area is rumored to be full of vampires who have already harmed many people. Neither Mahiru nor the others really believe this, so they all go their separate ways. When Mahiru returns home, the first thing he does is check if Kuro is safe, but as soon as he steps into the living room, he sees a stranger calmly eating ramen while watching TV, and in shock he immediately attacks him, but the fight ends abruptly when Mahiru accidentally pulls the curtain open, letting sunlight pour in, which forces the stranger to transform, revealing himself to be none other than Kuro, the very cat he had adopted the day before. Shocked, Mahiru demands an explanation, and Kuro tells him bluntly that he is a solitary vampire. Terrified, Mahiru fears that Kuro will drink all his blood, but Kuro reassures him that he is not that kind of vampire. Kuro then asks Mahiru not to call his name when he is in human form, but since Mahiru does not know his real name, he accidentally calls him Kuro anyway, and this mistake unleashes a powerful shockwave that binds them together. Confused, Mahiru asks what just happened, and Kuro explains that by speaking his name in human form, Mahiru has unintentionally created a contract, making himself the master and Kuro the servant, although the contract will only last for 24 hours unless Kuro drinks his blood. After this explanation, Mahiru decides to get rid of Kuro by forcing him out of the house, afraid of being permanently bound, but it fails since their bond prevents Kuro from straying too far. Having errands to run, Mahiru takes Kuro with him, and though he hears strange noises when leaving, he ignores them. Later in the city, Mahiru meets his friends except for Sakuya and tells them about the vampires, using Kuro as proof, but since they only see a harmless cat, they treat Mahiru as if he has lost his mind. Suddenly, a strange man appears disguised as a magician, but soon reveals himself to be a vampire, attacking Ryusei, one of Mahiru's friends, simply because he ignored him. Fear spreads as the vampire declares his mission is to kill Kuro, since Kuro holds a special aura. Mahiru begs Kuro to fight, but Kuro runs away, and later in a lonely alley, he explains that he cannot fight because he has no strength, having not drunk human blood in a long time. Realizing this, Mahiru bravely tries to fight the vampire himself, grabbing him from behind, but the vampire draws a sword and nearly strikes him down, until Kuro jumps in to save him. Understanding the danger, and despite being a boy who hates complications, Mahiru forces Kuro to bite his arm and drink his blood to regain strength, finalizing their contract. This transforms Kuro into Mahiru's servamp, his vampire servant. With new power, Kuro follows Mahiru's command and easily defeats the enemy vampire. Once the defeated vampire falls to the ground, his body suddenly changes and he turns into a small, harmless, stuffed toy, and Mahiru takes the chance to ask him why he wanted to kill Kuro. The vampire, now in plush form and calling himself Velkia, explains that he is simply a servant of Tsubaki, and therefore was only following the orders of his master. Both Mahiru and Kuro are confused since they have never heard of Tsubaki before, but Velkia tells them that Tsubaki is the most dangerous being of all, someone they should fear, because his only goal is to destroy everyone, humans and vampires alike. After this, Kuro collapses on the ground, drained of energy, and the same happens with Mahiru and Velkia, leaving them all weakened. Soon after, the police arrive at the scene to investigate the strange incident, but while they are still examining the place, a chilling evil laugh echoes around, revealing the presence of Tsubaki himself. The next day, Mahiru wakes up terrified, thinking that everything that happened was only a nightmare, but when he sees Kuro resting and hears him complain about being tired because of the fight the night before, Mahiru realizes it was all real. Because of this, the first thing he does when he gets to his classroom is to check if his friend Ryusei is okay, and to his surprise, Ryusei is perfectly fine as if nothing had happened and does not even remember any of it. Just like the day before, Ryusei and another friend, Kyoki, treat Mahiru as if he is crazy and imagining things. Later, as Mahiru is walking home, he demands demands answers from Velkia and Kuro about why he remembers everything while his friends don't. But to the people passing by, it looks like he is talking alone to a stuffed toy and a cat, so they give him strange looks. Embarrassed, Mahiru drops the subject and continues on his way home. But then, out of nowhere, it starts to rain even though the sky was sunny. What is even stranger is that the sky suddenly changes to a deep blood-red color, and Mahiru is pulled into a mysterious plane where he finds himself completely alone. As he tries to understand where he is, a figure appears. This is the first direct appearance of Tsubaki, who slowly approaches Mahiru, clearly expecting him to be afraid. They have a short conversation, and at first Mahiru does not realize who he is talking to until Tsubaki grabs his backpack and frees Velkia from it. Only then does Mahiru understand that the vampire standing before him is Tsubaki. Tsubaki then tries to speak to Kuro and is surprised to discover that Kuro does not know him, which makes him laugh mockingly. He then asks Kuro how many servamps exist, and Kuro answers that there are 7. Tsubaki laughs again and tells him that while that is correct, he is forgetting one, and then begins to list each of the servamps one by one. Tsubaki begins listing each of the servamps one by one, explaining that Kuro is the vampire who represents sloth, then there is Old Child who represents pride, followed by Doubt, who represents envy, then the Mother who embodies wrath. After that, there is Lust of Greed, who stands for greed. Also, there is World End, who represents gluttony. And finally, there is All of Love, who represents lust. Up until now, those are the 7 vampires tied to the 7 deadly sins. But Tsubaki shocks Kuro by telling him there is one more servamp that no one has known of or even heard about. And because of this forgotten existence, he despises his vampire siblings and humans alike. That hidden servamp is none other than Tsubaki himself, whose epithet is "Who is coming?" and he represents melancholy. Hearing this, Mahiru understands the situation more clearly, but still cannot figure out why Tsubaki holds such deep hatred that drives him to want to destroy everything. So he asks him directly. Tsubaki only laughs like a madman and suddenly lunges forward to attack Mahiru, but Kuro steps in to save him, although the rescue does not last long as Tsubaki easily defeats Kuro, leaving Mahiru defenseless. Grabbing Mahiru by the neck, Tsubaki stares into his eyes and tells him he will never understand how it feels, that no one on Earth could ever understand his pain, and this intense gaze forces Mahiru to recall fragments of his childhood. In an attempt to calm Tsubaki with kind words, Mahiru only makes him angrier, and just before Tsubaki can strike again, both Mahiru and Kuro are saved by the sudden appearance of a small butterfly. That butterfly turns out to be the animal form of the servamp All of Love. Right after, 2 small girls appear and invite Mahiru and Kuro to enter the car of their savior, a boy named Misono. Inside the car, Misono explains who he is, telling Mahiru that he is an Eve. In simple terms, an Eve is the master of a servamp, like he is to All of Love, and in Mahiru's case, he is the Eve of Kuro. After this explanation, they all arrive at Misono's mansion, where the boy takes his place seated on a throne. Soon his servamp reveals his human form, a very attractive and vain young man whose real name is Snow Lily. Lily then offers to guide Mahiru and Kuro through the mansion, and as they walk, they arrive at a lonely hall that suddenly turns dark. At first, because of how Lily and Misono had treated him, Mahiru believed he had finally found allies who would help him fight Tsubaki, but now he realizes he was wrong as Lily attempts to attack both him and Kuro. The truth is that Misono wanted to keep Mahiru as his servant, but since Mahiru refuses, he somehow manages to escape, though not completely, as they only reach the mansion's courtyard. There, Mahiru is surprised to see so many children staring at him, leading him to wonder how many there are. Luckily, Lily and Misono explain that those children are actually lower-class vampires who were taken in and sheltered in the mansion because Misono is protecting them from Tsubaki's grasp. This helps Mahiru understand Misono and Lily's true intentions, and he accepts their offer, not as a servant, but as a friend willing to help in the fight, which Mahiru agrees to gladly. Later, Mahiru goes home with Sakuya, who notices something strange about him and asks if he is hiding something, but Mahiru lies and says no, even though he clearly is. After parting ways, Sakuya is suddenly attacked by a mysterious being whose identity will be revealed later. The following day, Mahiru visits Misono's mansion again, where they talk about the weapons of the Eves. Since Mahiru does not yet have one, he insists that Kuro give him a weapon. Kuro refuses at first, but after hearing Mahiru's strong determination to protect the people he cares about, Kuro finally agrees. He tells Mahiru to close his eyes, and in an instant Mahiru is teleported into Kuro's inner world, where he is greeted by a grim-looking cat. a manifestation of Kuro's inner self. This cat leads Mahiru to a mountain of gifts, explaining that inside one of them lies his weapon, and without hesitation, Mahiru chooses the simplest-looking box of all. Inside the gift Mahiru chooses lies a broom, and that, to his surprise, becomes his Eve weapon. When he returns to reality, he feels confused and even doubtful, wondering if such a simple broom can truly help him fight. But with all the determination in his heart, he decides to look at the bright side and trust that it will become a reliable weapon. Meanwhile, Tsubaki is seen dining with Velkia, and it is revealed that he was the one who attacked Mahiru's childhood friend Sakuya, turning him into one of his low-class vampire servants. Days later, in the classroom, Mahiru, Ryusei, and Kyoki wonder why Sakuya has not been attending, and since Mahiru is his closest friend, he decides to visit him after class to check on him. On his way, he buys some food for Sakuya, but as he walks with Kuro, his memory begins to blur so badly that he almost forgets his best friend entirely. Just then, Sakuya suddenly appears behind him, causing Mahiru's memory to snap back. They start talking, but suddenly a woman's scream rings out, and Sakuya grabs Mahiru's arm and leads him into an alley under the pretense of protecting him. However, it is revealed to be a trap, as Sakuya is now a low-class servant vampire under Tsubaki. Fortunately, Misiono and Lily arrive just in time to rescue him, and a fierce battle begins. Using his Eve weapon, which is his throne, Misono fights together with Lily and manages to knock Velkia unconscious, but the battle is not over yet. Sakuya, furious after seeing Velkia defeated, uses psychological tricks to make Misono lower his guard, which causes Misono's weapon to deactivate. This gives Velkia time to awaken and strike Lily, while Sakuya takes the chance to attack Misono directly. With both their allies injured, Mahiru and Kuro are left alone and vulnerable. Mahiru feels trapped, unwilling to fight his best friend, but having no other choice, he draws his Eve weapon and begins to battle Sakuya, all while feeling guilty for hurting him and breaking his vow to protect his loved ones. To stop Mahiru from causing more harm to his friend, Kuro intervenes, biting Mahiru's neck to drink his blood, regaining energy, and unleashing his inner monstrous cat form. This terrifying power threatens to consume both Mahiru and Sakuya, but before it can, another servamp arrives to suppress this dark side of Kuro, knocking him unconscious. In the aftermath, Sakuya and Velkia retreat under Tsubaki's orders. Mahiru feels guilty for having told Sakuya the truth about vampires in the first place, believing that if he had stayed silent, things would have been different. He also feels responsible for Misono's injuries, but luckily Misono's father arrives and takes him away with Lily for treatment. Left behind with Kuro and the newly appeared servamp, Mahiru learns that this one is Doubt, whose Eve is an antique dealer traveling the world. The dealer introduces himself and tells Mahiru he can help him annul his contract with Kuro, believing it is the best for him after seeing how Mahiru's emotions almost allowed Kuro's darkness to consume him entirely. Worried by his words, Mahiru asks who he really is, but the man only replies that he is a simple antique merchant. Before leaving, he tells Mahiru to contact him whenever he feels he cannot control his servamp's power. The next morning, Mahiru goes to class but remains deep in thought about Sakuya, and later, to distract himself, he wanders through the city where, unexpectedly, he spots Tsubaki sitting in a restaurant. Summoning his courage, he enters to talk to him despite his fear, and asks why Tsubaki chose Sakuya as his servant. Tsubaki answers that it was because of his tragic childhood, when his sister lied to protect him, ultimately sacrificing herself so their parents could collect life insurance money. At that moment, Sakuya told his first lie to the police, saying that his sister had fallen from the balcony while playing, and from then on he began to distrust people, especially those who hid secrets, like Mahiru. For that reason, Tsubaki chose him as a servant, and in Sakuya's distorted memory, Mahiru was the only one who tried to help him back then. After hearing this, Mahiru decides to look for his friend at school, only to discover that Sakuya has transferred out. Saddened, he still hopes Sakuya will come to the school festival the next day, knowing how much he had been looking forward to it. When the day arrives, Sakuya does appear, though wearing a mask to conceal himself. At first, his disguise works, as neither Ryusei nor Kyoki recognize him, but Mahiru immediately does. Sakuya tries to run away to avoid being confronted, and Mahiru chases him, their pursuit ending at the school balcony. There, Sakuya confesses that no matter how much he wants to be friends again, he cannot, because he is no longer human. With that, he throws himself into the void, but Mahiru leaps after him, grabs his arm, and using his Eve weapon, manages to land them both safely in a small forest. There, the two laugh together at the absurdity of the situation, and for a moment their bond feels mended. Yet, the tender moment ends when Sakuya steps back, telling Mahiru that they cannot be friends, at least not now, because he is under Tsubaki's control. Mahiru accepts this painful truth, but turns it into a goal, telling Kuro, who had been hiding behind a tree, that he wants to grow stronger so that one day he can match or even defeat Tsubaki, all for the sake of freeing his best friend from the grasp of the vampire.